Well, the Cardinals just dropped 2 of 2 against the Kansas City Royals in the middle of this week. Big series against the Cubs coming up this weekend before the MLB draft and the All-Star game. Sandy and I are going to talk a little bit today about the recent offensive resurgence from some players. What do we make of the Cardinals standing within the National League right now? And what are we making of some reports right now about the Cardinals maybe looking more about complementary pieces rather than making a big move at this deadline? All that and more on this episode of Dealing the Cards. All right, Sandy. Obviously, you dropped 2 games to the Royals here, which no one's going to be all that happy about. It's kind of frustrating to say the least, but it is a 2-game series. It was both played in a doubleheader, though, both games on Wednesday, so you never know how that plays into things. You did see the Cardinals put up 4 runs and 5 runs in both those games, but obviously the bullpen kind of was shaky in both of those. What did you make of this quick 2-game series against the Kansas City Royals? Any big takeaways from you from whether it's the starting pitching, the bullpen, the lineup, and just what would you make of this series and maybe specifically the offensive output that's starting to come a little bit as of late?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it just kind of sucked. No one's happy to drop both games. You wake up, the Cardinals are 6 games over 500, best spot they've been in since 2022. We're feeling really good. Only 4 games back in the division with a real chance to push forward. Could have gained some ground on the Brewers, and instead you drop both games. Like, that just stinks. There's no nice way to put it. The Cardinals needed to get one of those wins, and they didn't. Both games felt winnable, especially the first game. The Cardinals built a 3-0 lead, held that through the 5th. Palante runs into a little bit of trouble with the bottom of the Royals lineup, a couple big hits, and then an infield single that kind of screws everything up. So you hate to see it. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is they needed to win one of those games. They didn't. All you can do is kind of flush it and move on. There's nothing huge to take out of a series like this. It's a doubleheader. Gordon Graceffo got his first major league start. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. You saw like a Liberatore piggyback, I guess, kind of thing. So, I mean, it's whatever. You don't love it, but it's not the worst series of the year, obviously. What they need to do is get refocused. And this weekend, they got to take 3 or 4 from the Cubs at home.
For sure. I'm trying to look here. So I don't think, when was the last time they lost a series?
They've lost the Miami series, and then before that, it was Houston and Philadelphia. It'd been a while.
Yeah, so it's been since the middle of June since the Cardinals have lost a series. They split with the Reds, which, okay, you could say is frustrating, but again, it's a 4-game series. So when you split a 4-game series, it's not the end of the world to me. Yeah. Obviously, you just beat the Pirates. You just smashed the Nationals outside of that Saturday game where Lance Lynn just decided to forget how to pitch again, which is not ideal. And then you lost 2 games, and it was I think it feels even worse because it's a sweep. But if the team lost 2 or 3 of the Royals, it's like it doesn't feel as bad. And they're a competitive team this year.
By off days, like that's
I was gonna say the other thing is you lose 2 games on the same day, so like it feels.
Yeah, and then you don't get to play the next day, so we have to sit here and think about the fact that they just lost 2.
Yep. So like if they were in the midst of a losing streak or they dropped a couple series in a row, it's like, hey, you need a big bounce back series. You just drop 2 again. Like that would feel like a bigger red flag to me. This is just like, you're not excusing it. It's not like you wanted this outcome. It's not ideal, but I don't think nothing about the series screamed major issues to me outside of things we didn't already know, like runners in scoring position stuff, which again, we can get into lineup construction talk. We can talk a lot about different ways they can try to alleviate that. But again, over and over again, the main thing is going to be Goldschmidt or Arenado getting things going, which we can get into this a little bit. Arenado kind of is getting things going. Paul Goldschmidt, on the other hand, the expected stats are pretty nice, but the output not there right now. So I don't feel bad about this series. The bullpen, again, blew up a little bit. And I guess I'll put a little bit of like we need to keep watching it because JoJo just isn't right now. Yeah. I mean, the Roycroft thing, and like whenever a guy like Leahy, when those guys blow up, it's like, okay, they're the 7th, 8th man year bullpen, and when they perform well, it's awesome. When they don't perform, it's whatever. This bullpen's just been nails this year. I'm not gonna freak out, and especially when you had to use basically the entire bullpen in one day because of the doubleheader. Anyways, it didn't leave a lot of room for error there.
I wouldn't use the word blow up. I think that's a strong word here.
Yeah. I would just say it wasn't like what we know it to be, right? Like it's That's true. You have the lead past the 6th or 7th inning, you kind of expect to win the game at this point. The Cardinals, it's not really in question.
What
this time it's like they
have?
Well, they had a lead in game 1, which was earlier, but Andre Yeah.
lead though.
I would say like this one's more of like they didn't keep you in the game.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
But in general, it's like when you go to the bullpen, you kind of expect the opposing team's not going to keep adding. And if it does, it's 1, maybe 2 runs there. And it just didn't feel as good.
That's true.
And that's okay. And I think you have a day like that. And the unfortunate thing is you had a day like that where you had to play 2 games, and you kind of have to go with it. My bigger thing, and it's coming off of the Pittsburgh series, they put up 7, 4, and 3, but then Nationals, they put up 7, 6, 8, 6. Then they put up 4 and 5 last few games. Like this offense is starting to hum a little bit. Again, I'm not going to tell you that's the top 10 unit that we thought it was supposed to be. Look, last 15 days, Willson Contreras and Pedro Pages with 900 OPSs right now. Pretty great. And I think the bigger story is you've got Gorman in the last 13 games, 837 OPS, where he's a 317 average, 48 slug. You'd love to see that from Nolan Gorman. Again, he's going to be streaky. And it feels like whenever everyone finally gives up on him and they're like, I guess he's trash and he's sent down, then Nolan Gorman's back. So I guess we all just need to act like he's trash all the time so that he always is good.
Curse him.
But then Lars Nootbaar, again, only 3 games, but he's hitting, which is kind of nice because it feels like when Newt comes off the IL, usually he takes a little while to get going, but he's had an 833 OPS, again, 12 at-bats. Not a big deal. Here's the bigger one, though. Nolan Arenado, his average last 2 months has just been up around the 300 mark in those months, which has been great. Lately, it's a 314 average, 340 on base. His slug's gone up a little bit, 450, 791 OPS. So, I mean, you're getting close to an 800 OPS from Arenado lately, and it's kind of weird that he's the one batting lower right now. I would switch him and Goldschmidt in a heartbeat right now. But then Goldie, again, 670 OPS. You look at the expected numbers, and they look better than what he's doing. But again, at this point, we're in middle of July here. I know that Goldie gets a leash, so he's not going to get benched, but I don't think you should be batting cleanup anymore at this point.
Yeah, it's costing the team runs. And he's just so bad with runners on. I don't understand why he's so bad with runners on, but like it's just unwatchable.
And Sandy, you've been on this forever. Like I remember earlier in the season being like, I don't think this runners in scoring position thing's as big of a deal as people think it is, because the whole every situation the Cardinals were just awful. But again, as the offense has heated up, you haven't really seen that from the big spots. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how big of an issue is it for you right now at this point in July? Do you think it's going to resolve itself, especially as Nootbaar's back now? And something to know is Nootbaar's like a career 130 WRC plus guy at the runners in scoring position. He was like 180 this year in a smallish sample size. He's been really, really good. So it's nice to get a guy like Nootbaar back who knows how to hit in those spots. But how are you feeling about this offense, knowing that they have this big of a struggle right now in those big spots?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to say a complimentary thing about the Cardinals and then some non-complimentary things to address that, right? So the first thing is, through the first 6 weeks of the season, the entire offense was historically bad, which is what you said. And so it's like, for me to be saying that they can't hit with runners on, maybe that's not fair because they can't hit with runners off either. The Cardinals ranked in the bottom 3 of basically every offensive statistic, including average OPS slugging. But if we look at the full season stats now, the Cardinals have been so good offensively since early May, which is kind of crazy to say. And sometimes it doesn't feel like they've been that good. And it's because they're not having these big outbursts, but they've been consistently good. They now rank 14th in batting average at 244. They now rank an on-base percentage 18th.
Which they were like 28th, 29th, 30th for a while.
So I'm not saying that's amazing, but the fact that you had to fight your way back up those rankings, it's a lot harder to climb them than it is to fall down them.
Yeah.
They rank 17th in OPS. They've been hitting more home runs. They were dead last in the league. They were behind the White Sox. Now the Cardinals are up to 23rd, tied with the Cubs. Okay, so like good things have been happening, but they're still not hitting with runners in scoring position. They still have one of the lowest batting averages with runners in scoring position in all of baseball. And that actually matters. Batting average matters when there's a runner on second because a single scores the run. A walk does not. So on base percentage, which the Cardinals are, they're good at getting on base, but who cares when the runner's at second with 2 outs? You've got to drive the run home, and they just can't do it.
And I'll back that up. So since May 12th, the date that we're all kind of like, this is when the team really took off. They have a 229 batting average since that date with runners in scoring position, which is 27th in all baseball, just above the Chicago Cubs, and the Athletics and the White Sox. So you're better than the Cubs, which is nice, but you're still 27th in baseball. 82 WRC plus in those situations. Their slug in runners in scoring positions dead last at 341. So even as the team has heated up, this has not. So I just wanted to give you some numbers for that.
Yeah, and it felt anecdotal for a while, but we had to dig into it because it's bad. And that's the reason the Cardinals have scored is because the rest of their offense without runners in scoring position has been so good.
Yep.
You look at how they pushed the runs across in the first game yesterday. Nolan Arenado hits a solo home run. Alec Burleson hits a home run with a runner on first. And by the way, I have no idea how that ball got out. We all thought he was going to line out to shallow right, and it just carried. And then I thought it was maybe going to go off the wall. Couldn't believe it got over. And then Paul Goldschmidt homers in the ninth. So you're doing it with the home run, you're doing it with a little bit of slug, but you're not doing it with runners on. And that's what they need to do. You look at how the Royals scored their runs, by the way. There was a rally there in the fifth inning where the bottom of that lineup, including guys like Garrett Hampson, what are we doing? Those guys were able to get on base and then drive in the runs. MJ Melendez was a big part of that too. And then they were able to do the same thing, kind of nickel and dime the Cardinals bullpen in game 2. So Cardinals have to be able to do that because the slug is great. The slug should be the icing on the cake for a team like the Cardinals. And in this case, it just hasn't been. It's been the entire cake. It's been the only way they've done anything.
Yeah, and it's so weird because you look at the names. Also, thanks, Dad. Reaching the 2,000 subs. We appreciate that. Thanks for the super chat. So if you've got a question, throw it on in here or I'll text you later. But the big thing, like, I mean, I just continue to look at the names on the back of the numbers on the back of their baseball cards, and I just refuse to believe that Lars Nootbaar, Willson Contreras, Alec Burleson, Mason Wynn. I'm not even saying Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado yet. I just refuse to believe that the guys that have been producing so far won't produce when it matters most. But at the same time, it's the middle of July, and this is where we're at. And so I think there's going to be some natural help with this as they potentially start making some actual lineup changes. I mean, I know that for a while people really wanted Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado to move down. And when they were bad, we were talking about it. But like until Newt came back and until Herrera's back, until Edmond's back, like, I mean, are you going to put Dylan Carlson up higher in the lineup? Are you going to put Brandon Crawford, Matt Carpenter up higher in the lineup? Like those names, Pedro Pages, it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to bat them above Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado right now. You're probably just going to try and hope that they produce that game. But when you've got your lineup back at full strength and you've got Edmond and Bassiani platooning in center field, you've got Herrera as that right-handed bat that can DH sometimes or come off the bench. You've got Nootbaar in the lineup now. I think you give him a little bit of run here, but you got to start making some lineup moves here. And I've got a preferred lineup I would like to run right now that moves both Nato and Goldschmidt down lineup, especially Goldschmidt. I think Goldschmidt needs to be toward the bottom at this point until he heats up. I just, like you said, it's just a dud when he's up in those opportunities. So, but I do think it's just going to get better. And when we talk about the deadline, I think there's people that want them to make a really big move for a big right-handed bat. And I mean, in theory, yes, it would be awesome to have Brent Rooker or like Pete Alonso or Vlad Guerrero. Like, sure, of course, I'd love them in lineup, but A, it doesn't make sense from what the Cardinals will have to give up. B, again, if you're telling me what's the thing I think is the most like smoke and mirrors that we have right now, it's the rotation, right? Like, you can't convince me that Kyle Gibson can start a playoff series, but he should be game 3, not game 2, right? And then this bullpen, it's been awesome, but you need a reinforcement. So I would much rather be investing in those areas. You can convince me of a platoon bat. I can be, especially with how Gorman, Newt, and Donovan and Burleson actually have all struggled against left-handed pitching this year. You can sit one of those guys, and it doesn't have to be the same guy, but you can sit one of those guys when there's a left-hander up and have in Randall Grichuk or maybe not Kevin Pillar. He's slowed down a little bit, but like a Kevin Pillar type or someone like that that's not going to cost the Cardinals an arm and a leg, but is going to make a substantial improvement to a major area of weakness. Because I ran through this the other day. I'll pull it up in a little bit and just bring up the numbers, but the Cardinals numbers against right-handed pitching is awesome. Like they really don't need to do anything with that. I would need to see what the splits are again. But on the season, they have like 8 or 9 guys that are above league average against right-handed hitters. So like, I don't need to add another everyday guy. You just need a guy who can platoon against left-handed pitching. And then also hope that as Nato keeps heating up, that he's going to be hitting left-handed pitching, that Goldschmidt can be helping out with that. Because that's the other part of this too, is the two guys that the guys in your lineup that are supposed to be hitting left-handed pitching aren't doing it. And I think that's playing into the runners in scoring position a little bit too. So anyways, the offense, I'm more encouraged than discouraged by at this point, but it's so weird that this that they just can't, like, whenever there's a runner on second or third, they shut down, and I don't get it. And it's weird because early in the year, I remember being like, huh, this team's hitting sack flies. Oh, this team is like grounding out for a run.
Dude,
Like,
it's the
it was
Nolan
interesting.
Arenado pop-outs in foul territory that get
Yeah, that's killer. The strikeouts and the pop-outs and the double ground to a double play. It's like, it's waiting to happen every time they have a chance to score. So, anyways, I'm not terribly worried about that for the Cardinals this year. Or I should say I'm worried, but I just got to trust at this point that they're going to figure it out on their own. I don't think there's a way to go outside the organization to solve that problem for them. I would love.
Where do you want to go 1 to 10 in terms of how worried you are about that?
I'd say like with runners in scoring position specifically. Yeah. Oh, I'd say a 7, just because it's like it's the middle of July and you're
big.
So, but here's where I'm really concerned. I'd say the bigger concern for me, which is more of like a 8-9, is the left-handed pitching. So again, on the season, Willson Contreras 182 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. He's incredible. And then it drops down. Let me make sure I have this right. I think I have a weird split on here. No, okay. I guess Goldie's actually been pretty good. He's a 119 WRC plus against left-handed pitching, which, okay, makes sense why he's up in the lineup a little bit when there's lefties. And I noticed that before. I guess it went up a little bit, but the runners in scoring position, again, is still weird. So if I split this to left-handers with runners in scoring position, I would love to see what Goldie's is. ARP is like a 140, which is wild, but he's had 16 plate appearances, wins at. So, okay, let me say for real, though. 182 from Contreras, 119 from Goldschmidt, 106 from Wynn. Everyone else on the team is below league average against left-handed pitching this year. It's bad. And so you hope some of these guys are going to get better, but right-handed pitching, though, 155 from Alec Burleson, 151 from Lars Nootbaar, 148 from Willson Contreras, 123 from Brendan Donovan, 116 from Herrera, 114 from Fermin, 113 from Wynn, 110 from Nato, 106 from Gorman, 81 from Goldschmidt. So you have 9 different players who, and if you take out Fermin, you have 8 different players who are above league average against right-handed pitching. 3 of them are truly elite this year with Burleson, Nootbaar, and Contreras. Donovan's 20% above league average. So you've got like 5 guys that are 20% above league average or better. Right-handed pitching is not the problem. Again, I would love to be able to split this to be right-handed pitching with runners in scoring position to see how that goes. But anyway, so I could see them doing a platoon thing, trying to get a guy like Randall Grichuk. That's just that type of player. Connor Falefa, I don't know, something like that. But I'm not investing big resources right now. I'd much rather be going after the starting pitcher, which, again, let's see. Sandy, I think we both probably agree they need to do something bigger than to move around the edges. But how realistic do you think it is that they go after a number 2 starter versus adding the Tyler Anderson or the Jose Quintana? Like, do you think it's actually within the realm of possibilities they go and do something special here? And special as in like Max Scherzer type, even if it's not him. I know that there's conflicting about his availability, but like someone in that tier where you feel good about a game 2 starter, Jack Flaherty potentially. Do you think they go out and do something like that, or do you think it's pretty likely they go in the shop in the lower tier?
I think they're going to be shopping in the lower tier. There's just not enough of those high-end guys. And then the high-end guys that are out there all have a lot of question marks. So none of them are really like safe. Because Scherzer, you just have to worry about the injury history at this point. Jack Flaherty, there is a real question of, is there something that he's doing in Detroit that he couldn't do in St. Louis? Does he want to, so I know that the terms they left on were a little strange. And then also like Contreras is the catcher and he's going to be in the lineup every day. So if that's a serious issue, that's not happening. So I guess there's the fact that there's issues with them. There's also like, they're going to be expensive. There's not a lot of guys available. And I just can't see the Cardinals ponying up someone big this deadline. The farm system is kind of depleted. They need to add to it. They need to keep building it up. I can't see them parting with one of their big they'd probably have to give up 2 of their big pitching prospects to land like a number 2 with control. I can't see them moving Jerpy or Hence it's just not going to happen. Maybe if there was for some reason, some like miracle deal, a 1-for-1 swap emerged, sure, I could see the Cardinals making that move, but you would need the right market conditions. You would need probably more sellers to emerge. You would need there to be no bidding war. And you'd need to have a Cardinals team that continues to perform well, probably as well as they've been performing, justify that investment at the deadline. And there's every chance the Cardinals, like yesterday, they lost 2 games. That's a big deal. The outlook is not as good as it was 2 days ago when they were 6 games over 500 rather than 4, right? So any small scuffle like that could justify not investing in the team in the same way. And so you need a lot of things to go right to do that. So I'm going to say probably a 5% chance, maybe 10%. Obviously, that could change between now and the deadline. If the Cardinals go out and win 6 in a row right after the All-Star break, yeah, maybe it's a 50% chance, and we're really excited. But it just, I'm not totally sold on that. And I can't see them getting a big bat. Like, I think that is a 0% chance.
Yeah.
There are just so many reasons. They're not going to part with their big prospects again. The conditions aren't there. And the worst part is there's nowhere to really upgrade for this team. Like, whether you like Nolan Gorman or not, he is the St. Louis Cardinals second baseman. Whether you like Mason Wynn or not, he is the shortstop. I love Mason Wynn. I'm very excited about him. I'm very excited about Gorman. But those are the guys. They already have their guys at almost every position around the diamond. And if there isn't a guy already there, it's Jordan Walker, and he's at AAA. So they're just not a good spot.
You mean we can't trade Dylan Carlson, Michael McGreevy, and like Giovanni Gallegos for Bobby Witt? Like the Royals wouldn't want to do that?
Well, I heard the Royals proposed that, but Mo said no.
Oh, that makes sense.
Something about prying Dylan Carlson from my cold, dead hands.
Yeah, they were like, we don't even need McGreevy and Gallegos, just give it Carlson. And they were like, yeah, no. So
pass.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a non-zero, like it's just, well, not non-zero. There is a 0 chance of the Brett Rooker at this point or something like that. Like, yeah, it'd be awesome.
Really fun to watch.
And I think people are vastly underrating how much he's going to cost. Like, I get that he's a DH only mostly, but oh gosh. Well, Ipe joined the chat if anyone wants to post his bail.
Ipe from his bank account.
That feels like the equivalent of gambling, putting $2 out toward us to get you out of prison. So I don't know. We'll see. Jeez. But yeah, I just don't see that happening. And I think Rooker is going to cost way more than what people sometimes throw out to me of like offers. I'm like, I don't think it's going to get done. He's got 3 years of control left. He hasn't even hit arbitration yet. Or 4 years, I think 3 years. And he's about to, or he didn't make the All-Star team, I don't think, which is wild.
He should.
Yeah, and he's just been one of the best hitters in baseball the last 2 or 3 years. So yeah, you're not doing that. Or the Athletics are not doing that. I know that they make a lot of dumb moves, so maybe it's less than what we would think because the Athletics tend to be incompetent front office, but I just don't think that's going to happen.
How did he not make? He's got a 159 OPS plus, 906 OPS. 18 homers.
I'm almost positive he didn't make the All-Star team.
He didn't. Maybe it's the strikeouts. He's got 106 strikeouts already.
Yeah, and then he also has to compete with DHs. So I think Jordan would have made it, and I don't know who else the other DH would have been.
I think is
you should be able to make that. So hopefully he gets like a reserve invite or something.
Literally identical stats to Jordan for what it's worth.
That's wild. And obviously the Cardinals are not going to sell low on Jordan Walker. Like you said, I just don't see them moving any of their significant pitching prospects, which I would put a significant pitching prospect as Tink Hence, Cooper Jerpy, Quinn Matthews, potentially Takeo Roby. I just don't think they're going to move those type of guys. So you're looking at the depth options of the Graceffos of the world, the McGreevies, maybe Thomas Ajayci they move on, maybe Victor Scott they move on from. I do think they wouldn't be opposed to moving from Ivan Herrera. I'm not saying I believe they should do that, but I think they'd be open to it. But specifically with Ivan, I don't think there's a move out there that you would move him in right now. Like you probably want a guy with control. And I mean, the only team, which I think Bob Nightingale said this today on the opening drive. And so I know that Morosi has been usually the one pumping this team and the Cardinals as a trade partners, but I think it's interesting that a lot of people see it. The Seattle Mariners, if they really want to get interesting,
I was about to say something about that.
But I don't think they're going to do it either because they have pitching injuries too. Like Brian Woo's been out for a while, and I think they've got another guy down. And so it's like just as quickly as you can.
Is hurt, right?
I think so. And so again, I think they would probably prefer to go after some smaller bats.
And they don't need a catcher because Cal Raleigh's been really good this year.
Who's their DH this year?
Ty France most of the time.
Okay, and then who's their first base?
Ty France. I'm not totally sure.
Oh, I thought you had their thing up. I'll pull up their fan graph. So like you can maybe squint and find a way where you do like Ivan splits time at catcher and then they've got first base stuff. I could see that. Like, or again, if both teams want to get wild, I'm not saying any of this is not going to happen, but this is the scenario where I think would be interesting, but I just don't think either team's going to pursue it. Again, I don't think the Cardinals should move Nootbaar, but like if they're open to moving a left-handed bat like Newt, maybe you can convince some kind of Bryce Miller move or to happen from there. Yeah, like Luke Raley's their right fielder. Mitch Garver's their DH this year, which I think actually Mitch Garver
offered it first.
Oh, Mitch Garver. Oh my gosh, Mitch Garver's batting 171 or 174.
He's been horrible.
So, and is he batting second every day for them?
They have like the worst offense.
Oh, he's batting second for them. Ew.
They have a terrible offense. But Seattle for years has done this, where they've trotted out one of the worst offenses in all of baseball, and then they've refused to deal from their pitching depth. And then they've just been like, okay, like Seattle, if you follow Codify on Twitter, you see like just crazy Mariner stats every once in a while where it's like, you know, the Mariners, they had like 20 straight quality starts or something. And it was unbelievable. But at the same time, I think they went like 11-9 in those games because they cannot score. It's awful.
Yeah.
The only way they score is Cal Raleigh hitting solo home runs.
Which, again, okay, it's way easier to say when you're the team who wants the pitching than if you're the team that has the pitching. But if I'm like looking at my team on the Mariners right now and I look at this awful lineup and then I'm like, I have Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Luis Castillo, Brian Woo's about to start on Friday, apparently. That's what Fangraphs is saying. And George Kirby.
Yeah, and Emerson Hancock too.
And so like my 5 is probably either Miller or Woo. My 3 is Kirby or Gilbert. Like you gotta pick up the phone if someone calls you for something as a bat. Because like
used the price.
I get that they refuse, but that's a team that I think would make so much sense if they want to. But again, that's probably an off-season thing. Like maybe in the off-season they do that because for them, then they're going to need to go out and add a starter. So maybe I don't know. We've seen teams do that though. Like
they have enough. They have depth too. They have guys at AAA. Like I cannot understand it. I have friends that are Mariners fans, and I make fun of them for it all the time because it is ridiculous, and it's going to cost them the division again.
Yeah, a comp I will throw out there that the Cardinals were actually part of this is back in 2022. I forget who the Yankees traded for first, but they traded for a starting pitcher, and then they turned around and they flipped Jordan Montgomery to go get Harrison Bader. I could see something which I think the Yankees thought they were upgrading. I cannot remember who they acquired.
Frankie Montas?
Oh, yeah, it was Montas. So it'd be the opposite, though. I think that it would be the Mariners going out and grabbing like a 4th, 5th starter for really cheap and then flipping Woo or Miller or something like that for a bat. That's something I think that would be really interesting to want to consider. And if you remember with the Yankees, like we all knew they wanted to go get pitching that deadline, but there was nothing. Like no one was hearing anything about them moving Montgomery, and then it just happened in the last hour. So again, I don't think that's going to happen here, but I think that would be the one contender with a controllable arm that makes sense, or one honestly controllable arm that makes sense out there. Because like you're not, Crochet is too expensive. Terry Skubal is not being traded. I don't believe that. And if he is, it's the Orioles, and they're giving up the house for him. The Cardinals are not going to pay that price. So, like, I don't think you're going to want to pay Jordan Walker, Cooper Chirpy, Thomas AJC, and someone else for him. I just don't think it's going to happen, even though Skubal's probably worth it. So, anyways, I think I agree with this long-winded take to say they're probably going to go in the margins. But if the Rangers fall out, like a Scherzer, I don't think it's going to cost that much. And I get there's injury risk, but that's part of the reason why you don't have to pay as much. Maybe Tampa Bay, one of Tampa Bay's arms would be interesting. There's some other other potential sellers out there that have some arms that I haven't heard anything about the Diamondbacks actually moving on from Jordan Montgomery, but who knows
right now.
Yeah. They did probably have to eat some of his contract too. Maybe it's a Paul Blackburn type. Yeah, potentially Nathan Eovaldi, but I think that's more expensive than Scherzer, but I don't know how much more. Who knows? Maybe the Giants end up selling, but I kind of think they stay in it. So I think in a lot of ways there's been some, like Jack Flaherty, I think does make a lot of sense, but other contenders who want him to. So I do think it's probably more the Tyler Anderson, it's probably more of the Eric Fetty, the Jose Quintana, something like that. But I'd love to see the Cardinals go on and get a number 2 because I think Ken Rosenthal in the foul territory today, they asked him about what he thought the Cardinals would do at the deadline. He said probably more of the moves around the edges, complementary pieces. But he made a really good point. And Sandy, I really want to get your take on this. Is the Dodgers just have a bajillion dudes on the IL right now. And you've got the Phillies who are awesome. So just they're awesome. And then from there, the Braves aren't the Braves anymore. They're just not that team right now. The Brewers are kind of shaky right now. Here's all the pitchers on the IL for the Dodgers right now. Walker Buehler, Tyler Glasnow, Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May, Emmett Shaheen, and Yamamoto. So their rotation right now is Paxton, Stone, Knack, and Wolberski. In their lineup, like the bottom of it, the Cardinals lineup is better. Pages is batting 5th for them. Outman, Rojas, Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor. The Dodgers aren't that good right now.
No, they're not. I don't know how they keep winning.
I don't
They win because they have star power.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman can still take over a game.
Yep. So, like, I mean, even right now, playoff series, you're probably picking the Dodgers, but I think they make a really good point where it's like the NL is so weak that the Cardinals can make a run here. And I'm not even going to try and tell you again that there's some stacked team. I just think the bar's been lowered. And if they make this complementary pieces, it'll be really tough. But if you go out and get that number 2 starter and you add a reliever and maybe you add a platoon right-handed bat, I think you're in good shape, or you're in pretty good shape there. And then you also have that baked in. Here's what I'm scared of. If you did that, then you also have the baked in. The Cardinals could get awesome production at some point from Goldschmidt or Arenado. I think what they're going to do instead, though, is they're going to add pieces around the fringes to add another starter for depth, another reliever, maybe a decent one, and then hope Goldschmidt and Arenado get better.
Yeah.
And that's the big move. And I'm like, I get it. I'm not like, I get why they want, like, are thinking that way. But man, why not give yourself the edge with that number 2 starter too? And then if those two go off, then your lineup, man, this team can actually go to the World Series. But again, probably not going to happen. So
yeah, it's sad. It'd be nice. I think you're right. The NL is super weak.
Yeah. So good thing they're not in the American League, because I mean, you look at the Royals right now and they're fighting tooth and nail right now to stay in the race, and the Cardinals can lose 2 games and they've built a little bit of a cushion for themselves lately, which is really interesting. Again, it's just kind of wild where we're at right now compared to early May. So a couple other significant things. I think it'd be interesting to talk about what we think this lineup is going to be looking at post All-Star break. But before we get into that, Tommy Edman side of things. So if you saw last night, Rob Raines reported that Tommy Edman was scratched from a game at Springfield, and it was due to soreness. I still haven't seen anything about whether it was like wrist soreness specifically, or if it was just general soreness where he's like, hey, I haven't played baseball in forever, so kind of need to figure things out. What's your concern? I was pretty optimistic that we've got Tommy Edman coming back now, and now I'm like, I'm not too worried about that. Are you worried about this?
I mean, I don't know. Part of me is like, if it was general soreness, they might have said, hey, it's not a big deal. And the fact that they haven't said anything is like, maybe it is wrist soreness, and then maybe Tommy Edman's just not playing again for the rest of the year.
Oh boy.
But I don't know. I don't even want to read into it anymore, because every time I think I know something about the Tommy Edman situation, I don't, and I'm wrong, and Tommy Edman is still not playing. So I'm just going to pretend that I have no idea what's going on with it, because that's the best way to cope with this all right now.
Yeah. And again, it did say he said the reason was general soreness, but I still like it. I don't know if it's general soreness about the wrist or general soreness. So maybe I'm reading into it too much. So yeah, I mean, especially if Edman's out, then I think you have to go out and add a platoon bat for sure. If he's not, you can make the argument that Edman's going to be part of that solution. So we'll see. But when Tommy's back, what would you put as your first? Do you give him the full-time starting center field job back, or is Michael Ciani, at least against right-handed pitching, your guy still?
Yeah, Ciani's the dude against right-handed pitching. Ciani over the last few weeks had like a 113 WRC plus. I think over a 2-week stretch, he accumulated almost 1 full F4. He's the best defensive center fielder in all of baseball this year. It's insane how good he is. I'm not taking him out of that role right now. Sure, you don't need to have him in there against lefties, because it's the worst thing ever, him at the plate against left-handed pitching. And if the offense gets really bad again, like if he goes through another slump like he did after his kind of early hot streak in May, because he was pretty bad in like early June, I think. If he goes through another slump like that, sure, then you can start seeing Edmond against right-handed pitching. But for the time being, no way. I like watching Ciani. He has been so good. In the National Series alone, it felt like literally every other inning, Ciani was making some big play out in center field. I guarantee you, just himself, he kept multiple runs off the board in that series. It's huge. Like you can't overstate how valuable that is. So I'm all in on Ciani staying in there right now. Edmond can maybe get lefties in center field, and then I don't know. You're not going to play him over Gorman at all. Gorman's the second baseman, and he's probably the everyday second baseman. Wynn's the everyday shortstop. So I don't know how Edmond gets into the lineup. And I don't know. It might not ever be a problem because we have no idea if Edmond's ever going to be back. So.
Oh, man, that is the wild part of all of this.
Yeah.
I do think, I think it's Edmond in center field against left-handed pitching if he's back. Ciani gets right-handed pitching, or friend John Mozilak's famous words, Sanisi for Michael Ciani.
I mean Ciani.
So that's wild.
He's come a long way. Ciani has come a long way.
I think if I'm talking about right-handed pitching, my everyday lineup when they're healthy, I'm going Mason Wynn, Lars Nootbaar, Willson Contreras, moving Alec Burleson down to the cleanup spot, Nato 5th, Donnie 6th to get the left-right going. And then you can go Gorm 7 probably, or Goldschmidt. I'd go Goldschmidt 7 to keep left-right going, Gorm 8th, and then you've got Michael Ciani 9th. Potentially, actually, and maybe swap Gorman and actually, I think what I would do, sorry, I'm going to go back. I think I'd go Wynn, Newt, Contreras, Burley, Donovan, Nato, Gorm, Goldie, Ciani against right-handed pitching. And then against left, and it's Edmond when Ciani needs to sit for center field. And then against left-handed pitching, it shakes up more because I think you definitely want to break up those left-handed bats with how bad it's been this year. You probably get Goldie higher up in the order. But is that fair? Like, is it fair to drop Goldie down to 8th now?
Yeah, you're giving away runs by having Goldschmidt up. He's hitting like 160 with runners in scoring position. It's just so bad. It's terrible. And maybe Goldie gets on base, like we said earlier. Maybe he draws some walks with runners in scoring position, but who cares? Who cares? Because then the next guy comes up, and it's Arenado, the way it was constructed earlier this year, and he strikes out or pops out to the third baseman in foul territory. So I just couldn't care less. Drop Goldie, drop Arenado too, but Arenado's been hitting lately, so he can stay up because that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And let's roll with that. I would much rather see Brendan Donovan up with runners in scoring position than Paul Goldschmidt at this point. And it's tough to say that because Goldie is 2 years removed from an MVP campaign, and the expected stats are still good. He's still hitting the ball really hard, but right now it is not yielding anything. Let it start to work, and then you can move him back up to the 4 spot.
Yeah. Agreed. And I don't think Goldschmidt's not enough of. I don't think he's an ego guy. And so I don't think moving down that far in the order, especially, again, this isn't middle of May. This is now middle of July. I think he's got to get it at this point. And he starts hitting. I don't think I think he can handle being moved back up. I think he'll be fine.
Big boy. He's 36 years old.
Yeah. I had someone responding to me on Twitter a little bit being like, look at his expected stuff. He needs to stay in 4th. You're wasting his at-bats if you move him down. And I was like, I get what you're saying, but right now you're actually wasting his at-bats being there because he's not coming through. So I get it. It's like, well, if he starts to come through, you don't want him doing that 8th, but I'm like, okay, then you move him back in the rest of the season. Like, you're not stuck there. So I don't know. I'm ready to move Goldschmidt down, and I hope the Cardinals are too. And then I hope he gets better. And then honestly, if you asked me today, is he going to be better the rest of the year? I think he will be. I don't know how much better though.
Yeah.
And man, it would be really exciting if in like 4 or 5 weeks here, we can be talking about an offense where Goldschmidt or Arenado look more like themselves because
oh my goodness,
Arenado you can kind of argue is just minus the power.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah. This offense gets really scary. Like we thought it could be this year if they're going. Cause no one expected Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson to be this good. Everyone else is doing kind of what we thought they would, right? Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, 20% above league average type guys who are awesome.
Freaky Gorm.
Yeah. Willson Contreras being Willson Contreras again, because remember last year from July 1st through the rest of the year, he was a top 5 hitter in all of baseball. So it's like he's just basically been that again. So Ivan Herrera's been pretty awesome. Pedro Pages. So
Pedro Pages has been a nice surprise.
He has been.
We also finally lost a game that he caught yesterday, which made me sad.
Yep. So he's not perfect anymore, but he's pretty great. So otherwise, I think again it's off day. Weird doubleheader yesterday. Cubs series this weekend. So Sunday we'll have a nice amount of stuff to talk about, but the big thing Sunday is going to be our MLB draft coverage. So we'd love to have you guys join us for that. The time of the draft, which I think it's been way too hard for me to find stuff on that. Also, yes, Ipe, smash the like button if you're listening now. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's super helpful for the channel. We just did a giveaway of a City Connect jersey. So we like to do stuff like that when we hit certain subscriber marks. So we'd love to have some more engagement with that. So if you like the podcast, like the content, subscribe for more. We do twice a week, but then our Sunday episode this week is going to be centered on the MLB draft. And so the draft starts at 6 p.m. Central Time. So we'll be starting a little bit before, probably about like 5:45 range. And we're going to have Kareem, who you know from Twitter, potentially, who does awesome draft coverage with us. Ethan Hannaford from KMOX. Got some Wake Forest guys on there as well, in case the Cardinals go with Burns or Kurtz or something like that. And maybe some other guests along the way as well. So keep your eye out for that. Brendan Schaefer and I are going to start doing more of a consistent podcast. You can catch those on Fridays typically, so we'll have one out tomorrow. I know a lot of you guys cross-pollinate there, so that's fun. Yes, Kareem is going to be in the draft live stream, so be there Sunday. Basically what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of a preview beforehand, and then we'll be reacting to the picks as they come through. So whoever goes number one, Ipe just asked if he can be a guest. So we'll have to reach out and see if you have a time for, if you can call your lawyer that day or something.
I think it violates his parole.
Probably does. So we'll see if that happens, but yes, Kareem will be, probably not Ipe. We will have Ethan Hannaford, potentially some other guests as well. So excited for that. But yes, we'll break down the picks as we go through, and then also obviously the Cardinals pick. So the really interesting thing, Sandy, right now is it's like there's no consensus. Like you look everywhere across the board, everyone has the Cardinals picking a different player. I think if you asked me today, I think I'm going to go with Hagen. Smith is going to be there. They're going to grab him. But it could be I mean, I would love for it to be JJ. I just don't know if he'll be there.
Please, JJ.
Please, JJ. Please, Burns. I don't think he's going to be there either.
Burns. If it's Burns and Hagen, who is it for you?
If it's not those two? Oh, if it's those two? Oh, yeah. Burns. Yeah, Burns. Give me Burns. So, but like Smith's awesome too. But I mean,
Burns has the lower floor, but definitely the higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think so. But then also with pitching, it's like technically they all have low floors because they can get injured and all could never pan. So like I'm going with the guy that has an 80 grade fastball, 80 grade slider, 10 out of 10 days of the week. But Hagen Smith's awesome too. I think that Florida State outfielder could be a sneaky pick at 7 if they go under slot. And he's just been I've seen him like rising up the boards as like a top 10 pick being like a really good bat. Very low defensive upside though. So maybe that's something you could do, or they go the prep route. But there's 7 guys I would pick above the prep guys. Cause I mean, I would go definitely Bazana, Condon, Caglione, probably, Smith, Burns, JJ, and Mont. What was that? Oh, Kurtz. I feel weird picking a first baseman only guy.
Yeah, that's kind of fair because you want a guy who maybe has 5 tools.
Yeah, so I'd probably at that point go Rayner or
I don't want to go prep. I hope they don't go prep.
Yeah,
I like going prep at like 15. Like when the Cardinals draft in the middle of the pack, going a prep guy is great because you might get someone at the very top of the draft in terms of talent, like Jordan Walker, like Nolan Gorman. Because if you redraft, those guys go higher. But at the same time, you also end up drafting oh my gosh, Nick Plummer or like Trajan Fletcher.
Yeah.
It's like name a bust. Those guys exist too. So,
and there's no really such thing as a safe pick in a draft, but you feel better about a college bat than you do a prep bat in terms of working out. And the college bats are just so good this year. Honeycutt's a guy that's really interesting, but I think that's more if you're picking in the mid-10s than in the teens than if you're in, like, I just don't know how I can't convince myself Honeycutt over any of the guys that are going to be there. Not any, the guys that'll be there at 7.
Smith would be good. I'd take him.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I think we'll talk more about this on Sunday. We'll get really into it. And then we'll have some guys on that I think, like Kareem, will be really helpful to break some of this down with and some other perspectives. Yes, we'll be covering the picks as they come through, but we'll especially be covering the Cardinals pick. And then we'll stick on through the top 10 to kind of react more about the Cardinals stuff. Potentially, depending on who they pick, we have some people lined up potentially to come in to join us to talk about that specific picks. We'll see. But anyways, it should be a lot of fun. Hope you'll join us on Sunday, share with other people you know. Again, thanks for joining us today for this episode. It's been a lot of fun. Big series against the Cubs this weekend, 4-game set, doubleheader on Saturday. Quick prediction, how many games do you think the Cardinals take against the Cubs? The Cubs have been a little bit better lately.
We're getting 3.
3 of 4.
We're avoiding Shota and
Okay.
Steele, so I feel good about 3.
Oh, I didn't realize both of them. Okay,
So. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're avoiding both because of the doubleheader action.
I love it. I'll take that. Let's hope so. I think the Cubs have been. I mean, I know they took at least 2 from the Orioles, so they've been a little.
Yeah, but we swept the Orioles. So
yes, who cares?
Who cares? I don't care.
Yeah.
By the way, Skeens is doing some fun stuff in Milwaukee. If anybody is interested in that.
What was that?
Skeens is having extra fun in Milwaukee today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say what's happening.
Oh yeah, he's 10 Ks. That's the big thing, right?
11 now.
11 now. Wow. Oh yeah, see that.
Oh, nuts.
Wow. Okay, Skeens, pop off, dude. Okay, actually, one.
Andy's got a lead now. It was 0-0. They scored, so he can stay in.
Is Paul Skeens gonna be like insane? Like, I know he already is, but like, is he gonna be like the next great starting
like Garrett
pitcher?
Cole level? Like, yeah.
Like, but potentially, like, I mean, Garrett Cole, I feel like is kind of generational, but like maybe a tier below that, like Clayton Kershaw style, like
Justin Verlander,
Max Scherzer, like
yeah,
he looks like that. It's wild.
Remember Steven Strasburg's first season?
Yeah.
So we can temper expectations a bit, but yeah, Skeens is legit.
But you could argue Strasburg would have been that if it's not the injuries. So like obviously injuries are always a thing. So like if Skeens starts to have shoulder issues, it's like, yeah, okay, it's gonna throw it
193 ERA. Skeens really might mess around and win the Cy Young this year after coming up.
I thought Mason Wynn had a chance at Rookie of the Year, but it's so gone. It's Skeens.
Hey, on the bright side, Shota Imanaga has 0 chance at a Rookie of the Year.
That's true. There's no way they pick him over Skeens.
No.
So we do love that. So maybe Wynn will get top 3. But it's just unfortunate you don't get the pick. So, but
I know.
We love Wynn. So anyways, it's been a good episode today. Thanks for joining. Again, if you're watching now, it's super helpful if you like the episodes. So please do that. If you can, subscribe, tell your friends about the podcast. It means a lot. We'll be again live on Saturday or Sunday to talk more about the MLB draft, and it will reflect on the Cubs series a little bit as we're going through there as well. And if you've got any questions or things you want us to address going forward, always DM us or to add us on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see you guys for the draft on Sunday. Peace.